All right. Hey, everyone. Once again, I'm here a little bit early, snacking on some chips. Not to say these are not fantastic, but they're totally okay. But hey, everyone. As promised, or at least as I've said, I'm going to come on from time to time, a little bit early, and just kind of hang out until we actually do the live stream, which starts officially at 12:30. So, I mean, I won't talk about like the main topics until 12:30, but I was talking about this last week. I was like, I'm just going to come on from time to time and just kind of work online, hang out with all of you, show you some of the things that I look at to do my work, and just chill. I'm happy to banter with anybody. Throw if you have questions, comments, anything that um, you want to discuss. I am going to add my favorite screen, which is I want to see what people are buying, which is my favorite thing to do. Favorite thing to do. What are people buying today? All right. Let's see. We'll sort this by market cap. Yeah, I think like it's finally time. Look at Palantir. Oh my God. It's up to 125 was the high. Alibaba, after a very long time, is now it's making 52-week highs. We own this, Shopify. We own this. When talking about that, these stocks, Japanese financial stocks, we've put those in a portfolio. We've owned Sony in the past, and I'm tempted to go back in, but I think I think we can make more money elsewhere. You got Ferrari is a $122 billion company. We own this one as well, which is another special situations trade war. I did a YouTube on this 2 weeks ago. We own this one. We put Carvana back into silver tier. That's making new highs. We used to own Axon when I was at Banyan Hill, and I foolishly sold it, not for really any good reason, but it was a bear market, and I had to manage the portfolio down to something that was more manageable in terms of number. But there was nothing ever wrong with that company, and it's done incredibly well. This is a company I've looked at, Samsara, which is an Internet of Things company. They have the correct ticker symbol for that, IoT. And I see questions popping up. You can keep throwing those at me. I'm just going to go through the 52-week high list with all of y'all. Duolingo. This is a stock that has done so well, and it's still kind of hated by people. Tapestry, like this is the owner of Coach, and so like a luxury brand, which, yeah, I think that's been like in a bear market for a long time. So I think it's just time. Maple Bear. This is Instacart. We own that. What else? We put that into gold tier recently. Remitly is the one that we've owned in the past, which I've thought about putting back in. BioCrest, we own that. Adaptive, we own that. When I say we own that, these are in ATG Digital portfolios. So if you're a subscriber, I hope you own it. We own this in Diamond tier. Put that in recently. Well, a lot of our stocks are playing. A lot of our stocks are playing. Um, we own Brainsway and we sold it out for a nice gain, and now it's back being bid up again. One of the things I want to show all of you is, let's see what's going on. Let me see what questions are popping up. We own let me just take you to the same thing for ETFs, because that's pretty useful too. Okay, make sure that this does transfer, because I really recommend people look at 52-week highs. I've been saying this for a while, and you look at the ETFs making 50-week highs. Now, I'll tell you one thing that I've seen is Paul, pronounce, yeah. You'll see that the ARK Innovation ETFs, the FinTech ETF, this ARKK, which is the mothership, is starting to make 52-week highs. It's a good sign for us. They own a lot of our stocks. Robotic stocks, these have been showing up on the ETF list now for several weeks. Now, many of those ETFs own a lot of like the tech stocks, so it's like difficult to say, but nonetheless, what it tells me is people want to own robotics, and they're trying to find ways to get into it. And obviously, if you're marketing an ETF and it's like, oh, robotics, and then you've got whatever Google. I mean, but it does tell you what people are seeking out. The other surprise, which I have been talking to, I think on my Facebook live stream, look at these European ETFs. Germany, Poland, Europe, Sweden, Germany, Italy. These are all making 52-week highs. Now, if you went and read, whether it be social media, any kind of media, that people say, well, Europe has gone nowhere for 20 years, which is true. They're so behind on technology. They're obviously got their issues about capitalism, free speech, all these different things. And yet there are investors just bidding up Italy, Germany, Europe in general, Sweden, all these supposedly no-hopers. They're being bid up. And the essence of this is really, I mean, Israel is a big one. You can see here. In general, international is big. There's a lot of people, there's a lot of betting that the US markets are overvalued, overowned, their valuations are sky high. And all these other markets, whatever their faults are, you can't accuse them of being expensive. They are cheap. On an absolute basis, they are cheap relative to the United States. And as I like to tell people, here's another robot ETF that we're seeing. In general, you'll see just a lot of innovation. So this is a great sign for us. And it's confirmation of what I've been telling you, which is that people who play the performance game, and that's every mutual fund, every hedge fund, to some extent, every ETF, you got to find something new, because the S&P 500 is so highly concentrated in the top 20, 30 names. You can't get much performance from owning those. So concentrate is huge. The valuation levels at 25, 30 times sales is ridiculous compared on a historical basis. It's on a absolute basis. I mean, imagine going to buy a business and saying, oh, hey, I'm going to value you and I'm going to pay $30 or $40 for every dollar in sales that you have. And then you go and look and you go, oh, well, wow, you've only been growing 3 to 5% for the last few years. Why would I pay $40? And stock investors are kind of doing that. And they're like, well, yeah, maybe many of these European companies have stagnant growth, but they're trading for 3 times sales or 2 times sales or something like that. So people are like, yeah, I mean, I'm going to go there And if a few things go right, the performance will be much more positive than it would be in the U.S. And this is one of the things that many investors here, in I think retail investors, they look at good news and think that's great, everything's great, let me buy. And not all professional investors, but many professional investors will be like, wow, well, that's crazy expensive. A lot of good news priced in, a lot of even future good news priced in. I'm going to sell some of this and go somewhere else where it's cheap and take a chance where there's bad news, but where the prices and valuations are low. And you're seeing this happen in terms of global asset allocation, where people are selling US to go and buy international. And it is now a very clear signal that I've been seeing for several weeks now. Europe is being bought, Asia is being bought. And yeah, so this is something that I talked about in my Facebook live stream. If any of you were watching it, I was like, hey, international is one of these secret bull markets that is actually like going on. And many people will be like, Paul, that's crazy. Are you, Europe, really? Why would you buy that? Well, you see, bad news and low prices and low valuations go together. If you think back in 2009, almost nobody was expecting a bull market. Why? Well, because there had been a crash. There obviously, real estate was busted. Our entire financial system was essentially bankrupt. Everything, it seems, in crisis. But what? Bad news, low prices, and low valuations go together. That is the seeds for an enormous bull market. That is, we're on the last ends of it. At some point in time, it's clear that we're seeing this now, where professional investors are like, yeah, I don't really want to pay 70 times sales for Apple. I think I'm going to take my money and go elsewhere. And we're seeing that more and more. Overall, we're seeing that. I talked about in my Facebook live stream about 3 secret bull markets. One is small cap, which we're heavily invested in. One is international, and one is innovation growth, which is very much like this is our wheelhouse: innovation, growth, opportunity. And those are the 3 secret bull markets that are going on, while most people are very focused on essentially big tech. The real bull market is getting going in all of these places. And you can see it. You can see it in this ETF list. You can see it in the 52-week high list that's going on. All right, let me throw some of these comments up here. Let me also just put up, while I'm just hanging out with all of y'all, let me get logged into I just tell you that one of my neighbors has a rooster, and this rooster crows at all times of the night. And it started last night at about 3:30 or so, and whew, yeah, I'm lacking a little bit in some sleep. Okay, I've got Y charts up. So if people ask me questions, okay. Let me go put the 52-week high list again, up again. Yeah, I mean, you're seeing it here. You've got, there are some old school stocks trading here, but look at what's different from before. And that is Japanese companies, innovation companies, and a lot of smaller companies. And also you'll notice, there are how many stocks? So I think this screen shows me, I think if it went over 100 stocks, it would go to a second page. So there are fewer than 100 stocks making new highs. yeah, that is not a large number. So, um, and at least today, you do not see any of the big Mag 7 in here. And that is, yeah, I think, going to continue to be a trend into the future, where, yeah, you'll see from time to time the Mag 7 show up. But I think increasingly what you're going to start to see is the market broaden out on one level, meaning that the names that hit 52-week highs are going to be quite different, but there's not going to be that many every day, like you have in big bull markets where, this list might be 6 pages long. In other words, there's hundreds of stocks making 52-week highs. All right, let's do some comments here. Kevin says, glad you're here, Paul. Thanks for all your future focused perspective. Well, thank you. Well, the way to make big money is to focus on the future. But as I like to say, when you focus on the future, you know what you get, right? A blank sheet of paper with nothing on it, or thin air, because the future is uncertain and unknowable. So, of course, what do people focus on? Well, they focus on the most salient, big word, I know, or the most kind of like important event that like they can recall. And right now, it's people looking backward at 16 years of rising asset prices, particularly stocks in the United States, and projecting forward that that's going to be the case. And I don't think that's what you're going to have. Remember, that old bull market begins after a crash, very low interest rates, economy in recession, government hyperactive. I mean, well, the government wasn't hyperactive. Central banks hyperactive. People's expectations were that, stock market were going to go nowhere, because what were they basing it on? Well, yeah, the most recent big event, which is the crash. So we're generally backward looking, but all the big money is made by looking forward. And for that, you got to have some perspective about like, where's the world going? You got to make some assumptions, you got to make some judgments, and you got to bet on something that has not been fully betted on. And that's, I think, you're really starting to see this in markets. Manual medicine. I like this name, Mr. Manual Medicine, or maybe it's Ms. Manual Medicine. I don't know. What are my thoughts on Momentus? I can only say the same thing as I always say when people ask me this. It is either going to go bankrupt, or it is going to be the greatest turnaround in history. At various times, I think the probability of bankruptcy seems more likely than the greatest turnaround in history. But I know that there are a lot of people that are invested in it, because I did that promotion on Space when I was at Banyan Hill and bought it then. And I know that people don't like to give up on their stocks, however low they are. And the truth is, from time to time, you have unbelievable, unthinkable comebacks and recoveries. And they still have something that in success mode, it should be, it's worth something. I'm not like, there's many people who made big bets on this, despite me saying, please don't ever make an all-in bet on any single stock. There's clearly a lot of people that have bet the farm on this stock, and I actively disapprove of that. But I can't control what you do. Everybody, you're all big boys and girls, and everyone can do what they wish. Let's see, where is that page with their technology on it? They hide it now. Reserve your flight. Come on, where is your technology page where you talk about your... They've kind of hidden it, but they have a revolutionary technology in a water-based propulsion system that in success mode, I mean, a water-based propulsion system. I mean, this is so sci-fi. I mean, it's crazy. But technology doesn't, create value. You have to utilize the technology to create a business. That's what creates value. And thus far, what they have mostly is a technology. And they're trying to build a business, but it's expensive. There has never been a business like what they're trying to build before. So they get contracts here and there. It's very clear to me that the US government doesn't want them to go out of business. So they throw them contracts. You'll see Momentus selected to provide launch services, blah, blah. So, I mean, the US government seems to want to keep them around, but that doesn't mean they're going to be a thriving business that, they're going to have, the things that make stock investors bid the stock up, which is what? Well, we want to see revenue growing. We want to see consistent revenue growth. We want to see you be able to forecast and project your revenue and beat those revenue numbers. So it continues to be a highly speculative company that if there's a miracle of some kind, it could turn around. But at this point in time, it continues to be like this, right? I mean, it could go bankrupt, or in turnaround mode, it could be worth, well over, certainly many, many times what it's currently trading for. But the probability of bankruptcy or some very poor outcome is much higher than a turnaround, obviously, because the stock is valued at $8 million or something like that. So you have to understand like where things are. But I'm consistently asked about this, and it's clear many people have bet a lot of money on it. The highest likelihood is still that some poor outcome, but they are trying, and the U.S. government is trying to like give them money to survive, and it's possible that let's say SpaceX's Starship starts flying, next year. I mean, actual commercial missions, and they start to, put a lot of satellites in, and there is really a market for space logistics, and they can really show that their technology is capable of actually doing the work. Yeah, then it could go much higher. Could go much higher. So hopefully I answered that. Kevin also wants to know, does Protolabs' future look bright? Well, Protolabs is a manufacturing company that uses many digital tools, and I have theorized that they are going to be a large beneficiary of reshoring, which is closely related to the tariffs, and bringing back production to the United States, which will, in my judgment, implement all of the kinds of things that Protolabs is involved in. If that's right, then the future is very bright for them, because there is no other company that I have found, certainly no other publicly traded company, that has the capabilities that Protolabs has. Dolapo says, thanks for what you do. What are your thoughts on Marvell? My view on most technology stocks mirrors my thoughts on the US market in general. Technology is overowned. People are backward looking, and they're excited about artificial intelligence. Managements of companies know that all of you are very excited by any mention of artificial intelligence. And so there's a lot of hype that is priced into semiconductor stocks and chip stocks, and Marvell is one of them. And so we don't own Marvell. We will not be owning Marvell. We don't own any semiconductor companies of any kind. But I know this is a very popular trade. People are determined to not miss out on AI, and they are chasing AI using semiconductor stocks. From my experience and from my understanding of the world, you're chasing like something that has gone by, and the best returns from AI are not going to come from semiconductor stocks like Marvell. That's my view. The Gidesin. I don't know how to pronounce that. We own MFG, and then we also own SMFG, and then we own NMR. These are all Japanese financial stocks. I think that MUFG may be the only one we don't own, and we'll probably add it at some point. I mean, might as well just own, the four main ones. It's 12:20, so I got 10 more minutes of unofficial streaming time. How do you feel about STEM turning it around with the new CEO focus on AI? Now you see, this is another like mistake that I'll call regular investors, retail investors make. You look at things company by company, but really, like if you look at bull markets happen sector by sector, group by group. It is very rare. I mean, maybe very rare, but it's unusual for a company just by itself to succeed in industry. So I have come on in previous live streams and said new energy is not a sector that is in favor. We continue to see people selling stocks in this sector down. And what you will tend to see is that even in a recovery for the business, if the sector is not in favor, not being bid up, then people won't pay much higher multiples for it. So yeah, they could turn things around, but we need things to obviously turn around on the company level. But then we also need the sector to bottom out for people to essentially shed all of their holdings, give up on it, and it to get so cheap that now as new buyers come in, they bid it higher. And now the chase begins where short-term buyers, medium-term speculators, long-term investors, everybody's a buyer, and you're bidding things up. And now the multiple gets bid up from 3 times sales to 5 times sales to 7 times sales to 20 times sales. Kind of like what happened with Palantir when, Palantir 2 years ago was trading for 6 times sales. Now it trades for 103 times sales. Yeah, 103 times sales. So we don't have that kind of sentiment, feeling, activity right now in the STEM or any of the new energy stocks. But the long-term prospects for new energy are as good as they've ever been. I think what happened is that we had a huge bull market that took up Enphase, Solar Edge, and a bunch of other stocks, and it got overowned, overvalued, and some part of the new energy business is tied to housing because of solar panels. There's too much inventory in various companies, so they got business problems. They have a stock market problem. So it all has got to be worked out, and so it's going to take some time. We haven't yet seen the bottom yet, where we still see here and there new energy stocks making 52-week lows. That's a sign that people are still shedding their inventory. They don't want to own it. They're trying to get rid of it, and they're getting rid of it at lower and lower prices. So we still got some more pain to go there, but we will know. I mean, we are once a couple of companies start to say like, hey, things are starting to get better, you'll see the bottom fill out in all of them. Because why? There's always an industry effect, right? It's very, very, very unusual for only one company in an industry to be benefiting from something. So if we start to hear like from one company that, hey, we feel like the activity is, business activity, has bottomed out. We see some, they'll use some word like green shoots. And you see that for 2 quarters in a row. And then you see the stock not making new 52-week lows. Now, people are starting to accumulate the stock at low levels. But that's not yet the bull market, right? I mean, the bull market begins when, people start to bid up. So in other words, where people can see a rise in value of the business from the growth coming. The shares are scarce because at cheap prices, it's dealers, true believers that have accumulated shares. And yeah, now as buyers come in, they're forced to bid up. We ain't there yet. Birdie asks, hey, Paul, I'm trying to sort out the portfolio my dad left to my mom when he passed. Sorry to hear that, sir. or ma'am. Um, are there any cannabis stocks that might regain value? Trying to decide what to dump. So I should put up my disclaimer here, which is that this live stream and the content from ATG Digital is not investment or financial advice. It is presented to you as opinion, information, and engagement. So having said that, I'll tell you a story rather than answer your question. And that's not me avoiding things. It's a way of saying, well, let me put up the comment here. Fidelity, which is one of the largest asset managers, brokers, they put something out. I think I saw this last year that said the best performing accounts that they have are the accounts of people who have passed. And the point of them putting that out was that the folks who do the least tend to perform the best. Why? Well, I mean, because cannabis stocks obviously right now are incredibly low prices. They got bid up during, in a huge hype cycle. The actual prospects for, everything that people had hoped for, which is full legalization, the consumerization of cannabis, never really panned out, but the stocks are very low. So, one of the sort of mental, tricks we play on ourselves is that we sell low stocks. We're like, well, this is terrible. And then, we might go buy something else, right? And if the new thing goes up by 50%, we think we made money. But if we stay in the old thing and that goes up by 50%, we still think we're losing money. All right. So I've increasingly come to the thing of like, the best thing generally is to buy small amounts of things and just let them be. From very low prices, like, yeah, if you sell, obviously you'll take the loss. You'll go buy something else. If that goes up by 30%, you're happy. It's 30%. But if you simply sell this, let's say cannabis stocks, and you buy it back and it goes up 50 or 70%, it's still 50 or 70%, except that from very low prices, you can have gains of like 300 or 400 or 500%. But of course, we're very much wedded in our psychology. And so we don't see that as gains if we stay in a loser stock. We're like, I'm still down, whatever, 70, 80%. But if you took that and you bought something that went up 20%, that's up 20%. But if this goes up 20%, so my general view would be, if I inherited a portfolio, I mean, for the most part now, I would probably just tend to leave it alone, and knowing that the markets are full of unbelievable turnarounds where what is last suddenly becomes incredibly valuable in an unthinkable fashion. And what is first and what you might think like, this is great, and you want to keep that, and that, goes like into the tank. Why? Because good news and high prices go together. Bad news and low prices go together. We tend to want to hold on to this, but this has a tendency to do this. We tend to want to sell this, but this has a tendency to do this. So that's not an answer. That's a story, but I hope that's useful. Kevin says Tesla is the best robotics play due to efficient design and manufacture. Tesla is definitely a robotics play. However, in terms of bang for buck, Tesla is a $1 trillion company, and even if it goes to 10 trillion, like I believe it would, there are companies. I have put iRobot into the portfolio, which are trading at what? I mean, that's trading at 0.3 times sales. It's a pretty small turn in their business, and they go to 3 times sales or 4 times sales, even on their existing business, would give us a very large gain. So, I mean, you have to most people are very focused on a business and think like that, but you have to look at the multiples. You have to go back and look at price to sales multiples for our stocks. And at very low price to sales multiple, not much has to go right for you to generate, big gains. So I'll agree with what you said about Tesla, but there's also other plays um, um, that are there, and it's clear that people want to buy into robotic stocks. Same point here. Progress Investors, a regular live stream watcher, and we have officially hit the marker of 12:30. So I'm gonna come back to you, Progress Investors. Just looking through some of the other comments. Let me do all of the legal disclaimers and disclosures, being that we have hit the official marker of 12:30. Which is that this live stream and the content from ATG Digital is not investment or financial advice. It is presented to you as opinion, information, engagement, and entertainment. I think for the haters, I'm definitely entertainment. Some of the comments are definitely quite effusively hateful and quite entertaining, at least to me. Next, all ATG Digital content may contain errors, oversights, and mistakes. Understand that investment operations have significant risk and can lead to the loss of your principal. What does that really mean? It means, well, you can lose money. You buy or sell a stock, buy or sell crypto, one of our option trades. You're not guaranteed to make money just because I put a trade on in one of our in our subscription tiers. I'm obviously trying to do my best. I have no desire to have you lose money, but this is a hard game. And just like a baseball hitter, right? Yeah, it goes up, and a good batting average is 300%, 300. Yeah, you cannot expect every stock to work out. Some percentage of stocks will not work out, and you got to own as many as you can. Why? Because every portfolio is dominated by the big winners. If you don't own the big winner, yeah, you might make no money. And somebody that owned the big winner, yeah, they made a lot of money. So you got to own as many shots on goal as you can. Next, I, the owners, employees of ATG Digital, own, trade, and transact in the securities that are mentioned in this video and all the content from ATG Digital. Next, we do not take money from companies or crypto promoters, sponsors to recommend their stocks or crypto tokens for better and for worse, for gain and for loss. Whatever you're getting from us is our own independent, unique point of view, not paid for by anybody. We publish quite a bit of free research, media, whatever you want to call it. I just put up a Ballman Speculating podcast this morning. I'm obviously on YouTube, and the Substack will go out today. We publish the Substack every day that the market is open. The Substack has had a very, very, very good track record recently. So it is well worth joining the Substack, paulmampilli.substack.com. If you had paid attention between our YouTube channel and our Substack, I mean, you had Fannie Mae, I don't know, others, Senseonics, another one. Either way, a lot of our free media is well worth keeping track of as well. I am very active on X, which used to be called Twitter. When Bitcoin is pumping, I'm active on Instagram and I think on Facebook as well. And when Tesla is pumping as well. So like the big names we put out there. I do a monthly Facebook live stream once a month on Facebook. So there it's more questions than the live stream. So check that out. And finally, if you'd like ongoing coverage of the stocks, ideas, crypto investments that I talk about on this live stream, then consider a subscription to ATG Digital. This is the website, atgdigital.media, and subscriptions begin at $9.99 per month. That's for the silver tier, which is a multi-cap. In other words, got very big companies, some medium-sized companies, some small companies, Also, the same is for crypto. All of our subscription tiers have both stocks and crypto. So there. All right. Keep feeding the questions in. And let me talk a little bit about crypto. I put up, let me find where the bookmarks are, marks on X. Bookmarks on X. There we go. I thought this was a really good indication of the sentiment in the crypto market today, which is that we went through that period of high excitement in November when Bitcoin first hit. No, November was the election. But we had like a period of excitement that kind of ended in November. And I saw this post this morning from Birdflip, who's a good follow on X. And he's like, a buddy of mine is taking zero point 0.1 BTC and selling every time we hit 97,000 and buying back at 95,250, making $200 after spread and fees every single day since November. And if I put up a chart of Bitcoin, particularly this chart, you'll see kind of like what he's talking about. I mean, essentially, we had we've had two big sort of pumps for Bitcoin. When people like, it's going to the moon. How do I know that's what? Well, I mean, I have a lot of friends, and so I can sort of like gauge investor sentiment by who calls me, who texts me, how many, the intensity of which they text me. I can tell you at both these points here and here, everybody was super, super bullish. And then we had this crash in early like Feb. When was this? It was in Feb 3rd, which was about 15 days away. And I can tell you that after that, all of this was gone. Like people like, it's over, Paul. There's nothing. I don't think it's even going to hit 100 again. I think it's all over. Pretty much kind of reflecting this. And I mean, he's being sarcastic. He says, comment and I'll DM a link to his free course. Birdflip's kind of funny. I mean, I don't know him. I just follow him on X. And you can see the sentiment here, which is, he won't gain any more doing that in the long term. Oh, I mean, okay. Oh, yeah. Well, the sentiment on crypto is not great, and I actually put up this poll this morning. I told you. I mean, one of my neighbors has a rooster, and woke me up. So I was like, well, might as well get going. So you can see this was put up at 4:44 a.m. Choose one. You have $10,000 and you must sell on midnight of New Year's. And people really don't like Ethereum, which is, and I guess the next least, Bitcoin is like the most popular, but no one really is that enthused one way or the other. And my view is this. I'm just going to get a couple of articles up that that kind of point to my experience is this, which is that when sentiment is low, it's usually because price has done this, right? I mean, we are very driven by price. We're very emotional about money. And when I told you that when I put up that chart with that band as to, where people were like, to the moon, to the moon. Okay, it's all over. Well, when people feel it's to the moon, they ramp up their leverage in using Bitcoin futures. And what we are seeing is, there's been a crash essentially in people's expectations, and with that, the amount of leverage being used to bid up Bitcoin has just plummeted. Now, this is a really good thing. Why? Well, because generally people using leverage tend to be the weakest hands. I mean, the nature of using leverage is that obviously if the price goes up, you make a lot of money, but price goes down very little bit, you get like sold out, you get liquidated out. So it becomes very difficult for the price to actually go past a certain level. And so that kind of explains like why, we've been in this like trading range for now like 3 months straight. And what tends to happen is that retail investors now are kind of like, oh, I don't know. It's not so exciting. Yeah, nothing's really happening. And from my experience, this is usually when we tend to get the big moves. It might be dictated by some announcement. It might just be dictated by somebody buying in right now. And as they buy and bid up, there's no selling pressure. That now pushes the price higher. Now it starts to stimulate both people going short, betting on it going down, as well as some people betting on it going up. And that drives the next sort of like move up, because many people think like, Paul, it's terrible when people short. Actually, shorts have to cover meaning buy. And so if the price is going up and the Bitcoin traders are short, it's good. Why? Well, I mean, they got to cover. And as they cover, they will bid up. As that happens, more buyers will come in and start to bid it higher. And for a little bit, people will attempt to continue to go both ways, both long and short versus just long, which is what we've had. And that is the healthiest market condition where people are betting both ways. And that's what we're setting up for right now. I've also put up these charts before. So, I mean, this is the range that we have been in since, about December. It's just 3 months. And you can see approximately there's buyers at about 90, sellers about 100. And that's where we've been, just back and forth, back and forth. Now, let me put up these. My view has been for a while that the 2024 cycle is, in the end, in hindsight, going to end up mirroring the 2016 halving cycle. This is when Bitcoin goes from, let me move my, can I move? Bitcoin goes from about 1,000 to 20,000 in the space of about 18 months. Or if that's right, then, I've told you my expectation is that Bitcoin goes to over $1 million at the peak. And we are right now finishing out like month 11. And you can see back then in 2016, the halving was in July 9th, 2016. So the breakout sort of really begins in month 11. And that's about where we are right now. So this is the 2024 cycle. The halving was on April 19th, 2024. We're now in February 2025. And obviously we don't have, the remaining 7 or 8 months, because about October would be 18 months. That has been, from my study of the 4 halving cycles, all the price action, pretty much positive price action, happens sort of like 6 months before halving, but like the big upside past the old highs happens somewhere, yeah, about 8, 9 months after the halving is where this thing really starts to get going. And the biggest gains all come kind of like compressed fashion in the last 3 to 6 months. So for me, looking at sentiment, which is like, oh yeah, people like, oh, Bitcoin's going nowhere, it's just trading a range. There's many people saying that the bull market is over. It's, you know, it's a dud. It's not going to do anything. And my view is that we are just about to have the most exciting period for 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 Bitcoin. Now, this may be too literal, but if it does something similar to what it did in 2016, we'll be at somewhere in the range of $300,000 in the next 2 to 3 months. That seems wild and crazy, but that's what I believe we are setting up for. Um, and obviously, I've told you my assumption that, in my opinion, and that we are going to pattern ourselves on 2016. And the basis for thinking this is, I think I did a long live stream on this, so I'm going to do that. But ultimately, the basic thing is that, like, well, the halving cut supply, and everyone initially underestimates the impact of that supply cut. And then towards the end, they overestimate it. And so we tend to have like this period where people sell the old high. So in the case of this current halving, people sold the old high, which is what, around 70,000. So that's the yellow line. And then people also sell the psychological marker of 100,000. Once now we've gotten through these selling periods where, I mean, you know, what's the basis for thinking this? Well, anyone who missed out on selling at 70,000 in the 2020 halving cycle and then saw Bitcoin crash to 15,000, yeah, when 70,000 came around, they're like, I'm no dummy. I'm taking my money out and I'm gone. And there were clearly enough people that did that. And that led to stagnation for like 2, 3, 4, 7 months. 7 months. Then as we get to 100,000, there's a lot of people. I mean, 100,000, nice round number, attracts enough attention from people that own it. They're like, yeah, I mean, my costs are whatever, 100, 200, 1,000. I've made 10 times my money. I don't need to be greedy. I'm going to go. And we saw a lot of selling. And so we've seen that. This is not unusual or different. We've seen some version of the same thing in previous cycles as well. Like, for example, in the 2016 cycle, we saw selling at the old high, and then we saw the old high was over $1,000. So both the selling at the old high and 1,000 were sort of like together. Well, we saw the same thing. And we have a similar pattern working out. So if you go on social media today, there's doom, there's gloom, there is no optimism. People are down about everything. I'm bullish. I'm crazy bullish. I think we're about to see a price explosion higher, and it is going to take Ethereum with it. It will take Dogecoin with it. It will take XRP with it. It will, I think, also stimulate a bull market in many of the DeFi coins, which people have given up for dead, Uniswap, Chainlink, and others. Is going to take those with them, and is going to shock people. Why? Well, I mean, because remember, we are creatures of price. If you know, so I mean, I was certainly bullish at 109. I mean, I wanted prices to go higher, But I think I would have had a lot more takers for agreeing with me when Bitcoin price is looking like this. Currently, with it looking like it's in this range here where it looks like it's going nowhere, people like, yeah, Paul, you've been saying this for a long time, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I mean, I told you, when you look forward into the future, there ain't nothing, right? You have to make some assumptions, you have to make some judgments, and there's a potential of being wrong. But hey, if I'm right, yeah, 200, 300,000, yeah, it's coming. It's coming. And that's not the end, because most people think like, well, Paul, that's ridiculous. Like, from 100,000 go to a million. But just remember, like, that's not the way the world scales, right? Assume that I'm right and we get to 300,000. From 300,000, 600,000 is just a 100% move, right? And just think about all the things that are going on today that today no one is excited about. And this goes back to something else that I like talk about endlessly. People are not excited by facts. People are not excited by evidence. People are not excited by research. We got like 32 states talking about Bitcoin reserve. We have the US government talking about creating a Bitcoin reserve. We've got sovereign wealth funds. I mean, Abu Dhabi's sovereign wealth fund just announced they've bought $400 million worth of the Bitcoin ETF. And I know what people's like, Paul, all that's happened and the price is still here. I'm like, yeah, you can choose to view it like that, or you can be like, yeah, but they haven't started buying yet. The states haven't started buying yet. The United States hasn't started buying yet, right? So you can wait until after. You can buy at 200,000, or you can be like, hey, there's a lot of good news and facts and evidence and research is just piling up that price hasn't responded to. I call the coil spring effect. All right, it's just sitting there. It's coiling, it's coiling, it's coiling, and people are standing and be like, well, all it's doing is just coiling, Paul. This is really like it's not going anywhere. But then when it explodes out higher, people are like, I shoulda, I coulda, I woulda, I would have made all this money. And that's the nature of human nature. So that's, each live stream, I always think like, what is the most important thing that I want to tell people this week? Right. And from reading articles like this, I mean, I truthfully, I've been waiting to see an article that said that Bitcoin leverage has been reduced, because Bitcoin leverage is a weak point. At this point in the cycle, eventually it'll be the cause of like a parabolic run. But leverage is always a source of weakness because those folks get liquidated out in response to fairly small price movements. So if those folks are dominating trading, it's very difficult for the price to go up a lot. We need some of those people to be short, so they're forced to cover at very high prices. We obviously need some people to be positive, bidding them higher. But if everyone is on one side of the boat, it's very difficult for the price to move. So this, which many people see as bad news, in my judgment, my opinion, this is really, really, really good news. And us being where we are here at this point here, which again, assuming that I am right, and we are going to mirror the 2016 halving cycle, we're about to go through this. We're about to go through the rocket ride section of the halving cycle. And it's going to take, it's going to take so many of these things with us. I'm not going to go through all of it, but I've talked about Doge, XRP, Avalanche, others that are all, I think, setting up to benefit from a huge liquidity rush. Why? Because as we go through these big points, 200, 300,000, people are going to have FOMO. People are going to be like, I got to get in. I got to get in. And the sentiment on Ethereum is horrific. Let me put up a chart on Ethereum. It's in here, but let me just get that up there. Where is this? select a chart. There we go. That's what I was looking for. Yeah, the sentiment on Ethereum is like death. I'll put a skull and crossbones on this. Is terrible. But yeah, hey, I mean, not investment or financial advice. Please don't bet the farm on this. But the high on this at the end of the cycle is almost certainly going to be well above 10,000, which is pretty exciting from here, but it's not pretty exciting from the old high. But in like if I'm right and we're seeing like again, it doesn't excite anybody, but information excites me, right? We got like 20, 30 states talking about setting up Bitcoin reserves. We have pension funds talking about buying into it. We've got the US government talking about buying into it. We have foreign governments that are, even if they're skeptical of it, they're like, there's some movement there to do it. When will they all come? Well, I mean, you'll know they're coming. How? I mean, because they'll start, you'll start to see the price move. That's the sign that people are buying. And what's the next asset after Bitcoin that people are going to buy? It's going to be Ethereum. It's going to be Ethereum. Well, that's my opinion. It's going to be Ethereum. So, like I said, bad news and low prices go together. Good news and high prices go together. The vast majority of retail investors look for good news and buy there. And then, often they get somewhere near the top, because it's hard to buy into low prices when it seems like, all the current news is bad, but you project forward and you think, well, has anything really changed for the crypto that we focus on? Like, I'm focused on crypto that has a purpose, has some utility, where there's use cases that are not theoretical. I mean, DeFi, has an actual purpose. It can take over many functions from the existing financial system. Nothing's really changed. I mean, all that's changed really is that people have gotten a lot more pessimistic about it. People are looking forward and like, well, the price hasn't gone up, so that must mean that there's no future. I don't really view it like that. I can tell you, when prices are higher, people will be bullish. That much I know. People will be bullish. So then it's up to you. Like, hey, do you want to buy at low prices? Then you got to do something that the vast majority of people are not participating in. All right, I'm going to end my official topic there. And I'll go back to the questions that people were putting up here. This was the one when I started the disclaimer. It said, Progress Investor, send you a love with mass tonnage. If B is on, I think that should go on a t-shirt. Mass tonnage. I think that I'll like that. Well, we appreciate all the love you're sending us with mass tonnage back to you, Progress Investor. Went in on Sensionics. Thank you for the idea. Any further discussion? There's nothing. I mean, people want new updates. Is what I talk about. People are addicted to news. Once they buy something, they're like, what's the update? What's the update? Because why? The price is swinging every day, right? But a company doesn't move that fast, right? If you have a company, heck, we have ATG Digital. What do we do? Well, we're going to, publish the Substack. There's the update that's going to go out. I'm doing this live stream. I'll ask you to subscribe. Well, Sensionics, they're waking up every day and they're like, okay, ever since CGM, what do we need to do? Okay, these marketing people have to be done. Suppliers need to come in. Production, where is that? It's the same thing every day. But if you're in a stock, you think the stock's up, so everything must be changing. Not really. Not really. I mean, everything that I laid out is still going to go on. It's not a trade for a day. It's going to be a rollout that's going to, unfold over some number of, at minimum, months and, potentially years. So in that time frame, the stock will swing a great deal, not because necessarily anything to do with the company, but because the market will lift the price up. That will bring, speculators that be like, this is too high, short it, or maybe market makers or dealers like, hey, we don't want to support the price here for whatever reason, and then they move the demand and supply balance. But retail investors think that like it should be dictated by news. I think we were over persuaded that like the stock price fluctuations are always driven by something in the business, and we don't consider that it can just simply be demand and supply movements, sometimes being done deliberately by dealers to reposition the price, to reposition their inventory. It can be maybe a large seller that just wants out because they bought at very low prices and they want to block sell it out because they're like, hey, we just want out. So you're gonna see a lot of movement. Plus, it's like a penny stock, right? I mean, it's like a dollar stock. It's 10 million going in could probably lift it 30%. 5 million going out will probably move it 20% too. This is my mom, my most loyal live stream watcher. Hi, mom. It's late there in India, but thanks for coming on. And David says hi to my mother. My mom is always, by the way, very thrilled when people say hi or see her. So Lucy asks, what price point to sell for PLTR and Robinhood? Well, we have already sold Palantir out of ATG portfolios. So whatever price you feel comfortable with is the price at which you should sell. I felt that at 70 times sales, I did not want to take on the risk of them disappointing in the last quarter. So we sold because I know what happens to growth stocks that are trading at very high multiples and they disappoint. Well, that's an instant 30 or 40% drop. Instant. Like, I mean, the market won't be open. There's no selling. They'll announce their results and it will open 30 or 40% lower. So we have sold out for better and for worse. We missed out on the big spike, but we're not in. So from here, folks will have to decide like, hey, how much is enough for you? If you're someone, be like, Paul, I got to get the highest peak. I only need to get the highest number. Then you're going to have to take the risk of like one of these things, which is that some piece of news coming out, maybe the next earnings call, maybe whatever it is. And where, remember, it's a very high price stock at 102, 103 times earnings. From like very high levels, accidents are more likely to happen. But if you want the biggest gains, you got to keep playing. My view was when I sold it, I was like, well, if they disappoint, don't raise the forecast, this will drop by at least 10, 15% at minimum. And then everyone will come to me and be like, Paul, why didn't we sell? You yourself went on live streams and said, 50, 70 times sales is a very pricey number. Why didn't you sell? So we sold. So Robinhood is a totally different game. That is just beginning its bull market. Palantir, on the other hand, it looks, let's look at Palantir. I mean, it just looks like a straight line up. I mean, it is a straight line up. This is Palantir, but you get a real sense of this. If I this is a 5-year weekly chart of Palantir. So, I mean, at the bottom in 2023, this was a $6 stock and it's now 20 times higher. That by itself is not a problem, to the extent that, I mean, if they were growing their sales by 50 or 70% every year, that would be fine. But Palantir's growth is consistent, but it's not. Let me put this up. You can see here, it's 105 times sales, and it's a very consistent grower. You can see it's 20% last 4 quarters, 20%, 27%, 30%. I don't know what that, I just got an error. Can people see everything? I think they can. I'm just going to refresh this. I think that should do it. and people willing to pay 105 times sales for the stock. So as a professional investor, that's very tough, right? I mean, because as this price to sales ratio just keeps rocketing higher, and this is the price to sales ratio over the last, let's just put up the last 5 years. I mean, yeah, I mean, at the bottom, it's 6 times sales. It's now 105 times sales. So retail investors don't look at things like valuation. They simply focus on price, and they assume that if the price is going up, it must mean that the company must be suddenly growing very rapidly. No, prices can just be bid up to higher and higher levels, and you know what? Somebody may be willing to pay 130 times sales. I just don't know. So if you want to play the game of like, hey, it's getting bid up, you would stay in. And in between might be to sell a little bit on the way up. Um, I mean, there's many, maybe sell half and keep half in. I mean, there's many different ways to sort of like, hey, essentially it's a psychological game. Do you want to keep what you have, or do you want to go for increasingly speculative returns in the future, knowing that they have greater risk? Those are like sort of like the bookend choices, or there's a lot of choices in the middle for Palantir. Robinhood, as I said, is early in its bull market, and I would not be looking to sell that in our portfolio at least. Dan and Dean, please make more YouTube videos. We want more of you. Dan and Dean, hopefully you guys are watching. You guys have fans among our subscribers, so please ramp up the video making. Truthfully, I mean, we have a small team, all right? I mean, and Dan and Dean handle trades. They do the updates when I'm not doing the video. We've got, of course, all the other things that we just have to keep doing on a regular basis, just to keep our subscribers happy. But I will let them know in case they didn't see it. But if they have time, I'm sure they would love to. Dean does have his own channel as well, which I think it's called 777 Finance. I don't know how active he is on that, but he does have that. Raul Segovia says, what about VITL and MNKD? I just want to make sure before I talk about this. VITL is only an option trade, which is down. And essentially that option trade is off. Yeah, I mean, they essentially disappointed, or at least they sold off a great deal after earnings. My view is, there's an egg shortage going on because of the bird flu. I think it was last year they culled the flocks by millions of chickens, which has led to a shortage of eggs. And I don't believe the shortage is over. So whatever is going on with Vital Farms, I think there's another run ahead. There's only so many ways to play an egg shortage. Vital Farms is one of them. So that was why we put on the option trade in the platinum tier portfolio. Hasn't worked out yet because like we put it in, and of course it did this. But I think there's another run left in these egg stocks. We'll take it with it. Mankind Corp is going to be releasing their earnings somewhere around the 21st. We'll get a preview of it when United Therapeutics, who they partner with for Tyvaso DPI, they will be announced. United Therapeutics announces theirs on the 21st. Mankind will be on the 28th. So we'll start to see some price movement as people start betting on the earnings, start anticipating what they're going to be. So something will start to move on Mankind as those things appear. But other than that, I mean, there are long-term things that are very much in their favor. Tyvaso DPI, is going to produce $200-300 million worth of royalties and contract fees. Afrezza has 2 big studies that can increase their market share significantly. There is an insulin shortage that sort of like comes and goes in different parts of the world and our country from time to time. They benefit from that. And there is a potential short squeeze from them paying off their convertible bond. So nothing has changed. It's the same scenario as what it has been. I went back into some Senseonics at one point, was up huge, hit 5, never sold then, sold all out at 40 cents. Yeah, this is what I'm talking about, which is that you see, like, we buy at high prices because price is how we judge. Then we sell at low prices because, again, price is how we judge. Now, you sold out at 40 cents, and let's say you took, let's just assume the position was worth $1,000. You took your $1,000 and you bought something else, and maybe you made 15% in that. You made $150. Staying in at 40 cents, I mean, you had a higher chance of making better money if you simply thought of it as the same as like, well, it's just another position that makes you money. But our psychology is very much wedded to the idea of losses and gains. And so we don't see something that goes up from our loss as a gain. But if we sell it and we buy something new, that's a gain. But in the end, money's money. It's fungible, right? I mean, so this is a pretty typical example, really, of our psychology causing us to do things that in the end are detrimental to our wealth. BTDR, yeah. I mean, well, this is related to BTDR, BitDeer, yeah. I mean, all crypto. I mean, if Bitcoin's not going anywhere, no crypto is going anywhere. So, I mean, it's not going to independently levitate by itself. We need Bitcoin prices to do something like what I'm saying, and then we will have some action in there. I do not believe, just like I don't like semiconductor stocks, I do not like home builder stocks. The time to buy home builder stocks was after the last crash and the crisis. Today, we are looking backward and be like, these are great. I can tell you, when I proposed buying home builder stocks in 2011, people came to stone me. And my general view of cyclical stocks, which home builders are definitely cyclical stocks, is that you want to buy them just like semiconductors when they look like they're a step away from bankruptcy. And you sell them when they're in rude health and where everyone thinks that they're great and you want to own them. That's the time you want to sell them. So that's where home builders are. I'm a seller, not a buyer of home builder stocks. Birdie says, thank you, Paul. Love listening to your stuff and filter you since Banyan Hill days. You trusted your judgment. I'm sorry for your loss. And the cannabis stocks, yeah, that you were asking me about. I assume that that's correct. I apologize yes, that's correct. They're so low. I mean, they're like Senseonics at 40 cents. Anything can happen, right? I mean, if like a court rules that, hey, like there's now all this discussion about debanking of crypto, debanking people for political reasons, but there's also been debanking for cannabis. And it's a huge hindrance for cannabis businesses. Sentiment can turn. I think if the prices of, if the positions are small, selling out to gain, let's say you put $5,000 in and went down by 80%. What are you really gaining by selling? By continuing to own it, well, essentially you have a very low price option on a recovery. And that whatever, something goes down by 80%, right? That little money you take and you're going to buy something that probably has gone up that makes you feel better. It maybe make you 10 or 15%. But if you left it here and pretended like it was a new position, you might make 300, 400% in recovery mode. And the new position would almost never have that kind of upside potential. Thank you. Please comment on VRXT. I'm going to guess that this is a stock that is recommended by someone in the newsletter business. as part of some promotion. But yeah, VRXT does not come up. Let me try on VRXT is not a stock that comes up for me. So it may be so small that it doesn't come up, but I don't know it. And it doesn't come up on stock charts, does not come up on Y charts. But I'm going to guess that it's probably a stock that's been recommended by some newsletter editor as part of some promotion. Maybe I'm wrong. To join our free newsletter, B is on the comments. That's where you go. paulmampili.substack.com. Unfortunately, I don't think it shows up as a link, so you're going to have to type it in. What's my view on XRP and XRP Ledger? I am bullish. I own XRP and have owned it for pre the SEC lawsuit days. I never sold it. It crashed. It boomed. We put it into the silver tier portfolio after the first signs that they were going to win the SEC lawsuit. I think the SEC lawsuit almost certainly is going to end up being withdrawn. I mean, I haven't seen that, hasn't happened yet. And between Bitcoin going through the remainder of its halving cycle, XRP being fully legal for people to own, and there's so much hatred for XRP on X. I mean, people hate XRP, hate Ripple. I mean, I don't really get involved in all this. I mean, I'm a price speculator. I'm looking to make money. There's all people like, that like want like people to, be like, they're terrible. They're not decentralized. Okay, fine. If that's what's important, you don't own it. That's okay. I'm bullish. I mean, I'm bullish. I think I did a YouTube video on XRP, and I said that at minimum, XRP and Ethereum should have similar market capitalization. So that would essentially double it from where it is. But I think Ethereum is going up. So from there, it should keep up with Ethereum because they have similar-ish potential and roles for different parts of the financial system. For the part of the financial system that doesn't want a public blockchain, you might go on the ledger, XRP ledger. You want to be public, you'll go on Ethereum. They play similar roles to different parts of the financial system. So I'm bullish on XRP as I am with Ethereum. Another plug for our newsletter. We're at 6,000, a little bit under 6,200. So launch us over 6,200. Get us to 6,250. Let's get there to 650. How does Platona feel on the list? It feels heavy. It feels heavy. Miss Puppy Pop, also a regular. I just need to tie this in properly here. Regular live stream watch says, glad to be here. Ethereum going to 10K and then 100K. I mean, just remember, right? We do have to live within the world of like some limits. So like, I mean, if I put up coin market cap, I'm going to put this up here. So let's look at Ethereum, right? And it has a circulating supply of 120 million. So if it goes to 100,000, where's my phone? Somebody do the math here. I for whatever reason, when there's a lot of zeros, my brain like turns into, so 120 million times 100,000 would give it a market capitalization of 12 quadrillion. Yeah, so I don't think that's possible. Not in this cycle anyway. Maybe eventually over some period of time, but I don't think it can get there on this cycle. I think it would have to be in a few decades where the money supply also went up and or value of crypto goes up. But definitely, I think it can go significantly higher. Liz, always love your optimism. Thank you for joining in as usual. There are those who make things happen. There are those who watch things happen. And then there are those who say, what happened? I love that. That is awesome. That is awesome. Liz, plugging our ATG Digital Services, atgdigital.media is where you'd go. We got silver, which starts at $9.99 a month. Gold is $14.99. Platinum, I believe, is $19.99. And purple, which is a loyalty tier. Essentially, some people end up making a lot of money and they want to, reciprocate and give back. And that's the purple tier. We also do some special reports where I see particular opportunities. I do video reports. You get that tears of happiness and joy, I'll add. Thank you, Liz. I appreciate you plugging us. And diamond tier, which is our small cap tier, which is where Senseonics is located. The guide Sin, you'll have to send us a pronunciation guide on how to pronounce the guide Sin. Says, I'm a big fan too. Well, we appreciate all of you. We all appreciate all the ones that show up regularly for our live streams. This is our free crypto resource. We also have a crypto course, which is very down to earth. It's nothing like, super fancy or anything. Essentially, like, we try to put ourselves in your place and be like, what were the questions that sort of regular people want to know about? And I think Dean came up with the questions, and I sort of just like this. I stared at a camera and answered it. So if you're starting out in crypto, you want to check us out, check out some of our crypto resources. Miss Pup says, I love that. Tears of happiness. Yes. Austin asks, curious how bullish you are on Tesla Optimus for the future. A lot of reading and watching videos on robotics, and now I'm starting to see why Elon says Optimus will be the biggest part of Tesla by far. Well, Elon, Elon is good at, talking up the future, and the future comes eventually. I mean, I've owned Tesla since 2018, and he was talking about, full self-driving, being able to go from New York to LA without touching the steering, and we're almost there. So just understand, I think, to me, I mean, Optimus is probably still a couple of years away before we start to see, they got to scale up manufacturing. They got to be able to perfect that manufacturing. I think robotaxis are the most immediate, robotics that we are going to see on mass scale in our country and around the world, I think. And then a few years out from now, we're going to start to see sort of Optimus walk up the curve of capability, kind of like the way we've seen full self-driving robotaxis. I mean, I've been using it since 2018, and I can see, today, I can sit in my Cybertruck and mostly press a button, and with small little annoyances, really, in terms of driver behavior, I really have to do nothing. So there's always a curve to be walked, but the future is definitely bright, and they are pretty much the only large company making a large bet on this. So if the future is going to happen, they're going to benefit. So I'm bullish on Tesla and robotics. Thoughts on solid state batteries, QuantumScape? QuantumScape continues to pursue their solid state batteries. They are walking up the commercial curve. And I think if any new energy stock can trade on its own without having the rest of the group trade up, it's QuantumScape, because their technology is very different. Their company is also sort of in between, going from research to commercial stage. And I can see buyers coming in to bid that stock up, but they still have, I think, at least 12, 18, maybe 24 months of proving out production on a commercial scale. Then they have to get somebody to put their batteries into a device and where it provides some commercial advantage that makes people want to go buy that device. Because remember, QuantumScape just they makes the batteries. Batteries by themselves, I mean, somebody's got to go use it in something. And it's got to be used in some way where whatever it gives you, like people won't really pay for additional safety. People will pay for maybe a longer length of time. So somebody's got to find a way to put it into some device that consumers are willing to pay for. And with that, then they get a bunch of orders, scale up. So we just have to watch and wait and see. The guide Sin says, "Hi, Paul's mom. What a wonderful son you have." Thank you very much. I appreciate the compliments. Very, very grateful for you joining the live stream. Shelly Sobel says, "Thoughts on CRSP?" Yeah, let's check this one out. The CRSP, 4.4 billion, $52. Let's put up a 5-year chart. At the COVID peak, 220 all the way back down to $36. We are still really awaiting them to go full commercial. Oh, I didn't put up the chart. CRISPR is a little bit like QuantumScape. They are somewhat experimental. We need that product to go out into the world. We need to see people utilizing it. By people, I mean doctors utilizing it in patients. And CRISPR, like any other company, just understand that while retail investors get excited about technology, professional investors bid up cash flows. So they have to ultimately put the product out, have it be sold, show that they can grow, show that they can forecast growth, show that they can beat that growth. That's what gets professional investors excited to bid it higher. And we are bottoming out. And before 12:30 came on, I was, going through my pre-live stream, sort of like working online, hanging out with folks that joined me. And we can see biotech is slowly being accumulated and being bid up. There's more biotech on the 52-week high list. So I think we're going to see 52-week highs on CRISPR. I'll say second half of this year is possible, assuming that things go right in terms of the commercial rollout of things. Leo Lion Dog says, "There's some saying that Coinbase is selling paper Bitcoin to manipulate the price. Is it possible?" Well, I mean, anything's possible. But I mean, some of these theories are sort of silly. Like, I mean, Coinbase's entire business, right, is built on trading Bitcoin and other coins. So what are they actually going to benefit from doing this? They would ruin their entire business. They would ruin their reputation. They would ruin trust. Nobody would trust that platform. So, I mean, a lot of things that are said on social media are done to like manufacture engagement. Coinbase has a ridiculously profitable business. They are the market leader by a factor of 10 or 20. Why would they jeopardize themselves by doing this? This is not a thing that I think makes any sense to me, but it is bandied about on social media all the time. And I think it's silly. Ed says, "Sold some Palantir." And Ed, I also saw that you gave us $10, and I appreciate that. I have turned on super chats and things like that on our YouTube channel. You can also join and subscribe. But thank you, Ed. I appreciate the $10 super chat. Appreciate it. That's another way that if you feel like you want to reward us, you can choose to do that. Now I'm going to feature Ed's super chat. Thank you very much. Very generous on your part. And Ed, I guess, took some of the comments that I laid out, which is that, I mean, Palantir can go to 150 times sales. It could go to 200 times sales. There might be somebody willing to pay for it. During the dot-com era, things traded for crazy wild numbers. But you do have to like constantly understand that as the price goes up, the risk goes up. And there's nothing changing at the company level. It's purely changing at the stock level. So should you follow Ed? Well, it depends on you. What is your penchant for risk? How much of your gains do you want to keep? How much do you want to like leave for the future? Up to you. David says, I just now sold 10 shares of Palantir for 1,314%. Wow, with 60 shares remaining. So you can see, I mean, people are taking some of the things that I'm saying and doing different things. Some are like, hey, Paul's making a point. I don't want to lose all my gains. I'm going to take some and sell. That's a perfectly normal thing to do. For me, it's very difficult to be like, hey, because we do equal weighted positions in the ATG Digital portfolios by dollar amount. We buy $1,000, and some people say, why can't you sell half, etc. Well, I mean, it's very difficult as it is, like with 50 or 60 positions, and we have half positions. That's one issue. We have only so many slots that we can, cover. So we kind of have to make binary decisions, in or out, buy or sell. And then the other issue is that we say like, hey, if a stock is in our portfolio, anybody can buy it. So a new subscriber coming in would be like, hey, I can still buy this. And that's an issue as well. So there's no way to like do any of this perfectly. I'm very open in our updates as to, hey, these are the quandaries that, I find myself in. And people, have to make their own decisions. We all want to make more money, and we all want to make it as fast as we can. So, people can make their own judgments. Where do I see Coinbase going? Let me put up Coinbase like I put up CRISPR. So Coinbase at 262, and this is a 1-year chart, and let's look at a 5-year chart. So the high for Coinbase was at its IPO, pretty much, I think the week of its IPO, it opened at 250 and then jumped to $430. I see it going past 430. I just realized I have not put that chart up. So you can see the old high is 430, and I certainly expect accompanying Bitcoin going to new highs. What we will see is that new high is going to get taken out completely. I can see a high in excess of $1,000 or more as the amount of trading really ramps up in 2025. Will take Coinbase significantly higher. So that's my opinion. That's my viewpoint. It's not a guarantee. Let me do the same thing with Tesla. This is, again, this is a 5-year weekly chart. So this is the 5-year chart of Tesla. So it made a new all-time high. I'm pretty sure that's an all-time high. Let me just confirm that. I'll put this out for 10 years. This is now a 10-year chart. Yeah, it's an all-time high of $488. And I expect, again, Tesla to go past $1,000, driven by people bidding up the potential for robotaxis, the EV business, which has been hit hard by interest rates. Interest rates, of course, are very important because, people judge by what their monthly payment is. I'm also expecting EVs to start to take more market share from internal combustion engines. We've got, obviously, Cybertruck production ramping up and the sales of that going to ramp up. And then some excitement that people will start to project forward about Optimus. And then there's the energy business as well, which is going quite well. So my experience that new highs beget new highs, so that's what I would expect to happen. I was mentioning Dean's YouTube channel. Go check it out. It's at 777 Finance. And now that both Dean and Dan know that you guys are chomping at the bit for more content, hopefully they will put up more content for you guys to talk about. Nick asks, any thoughts about Trade Desk missing on earnings? Thank you for bringing this one up. Let's look at this Trade Desk. That's Trade Desk on a 10-year basis. So we saw a new high, and then clearly people bet on another new high coming, huge bets on Trade Desk beating estimates. I'm just going to do a 5-year weekly, and it tracked back right back to where it was in August. So this is not something I like to see. I would have definitely preferred if the selling pressure was not quite as great. But what it does tell me is somebody absolutely just dumped out of their position. And it is as much a reflection of the fact that there was a large block that wanted out. They probably got in somewhere near the high and they wanted out. And as I like to say, people think about the stock market in very different ways, but the stock market works very much like any other market, right? I mean, if there's a very large seller that wants to sell all their position out all at once, you are not going to get, a good price. You are going to get a terrible price. All right. So if somebody wants to sell 20, 30 million shares in a day, yeah, that's what you get right there. Let's look at Trade Desk as a business. So after that disappointment, Trade Desk, so this is what can, potentially happen with growth stocks, right? So Trade Desk prior to the earnings was trading for 30 times sales. Now it's trading for 16 times sales. So the price to sales multiple has just compressed a great deal. I'm just going to put that up. So you can see here, this is the Trade Desk price to sales multiple. Going into earnings, 25 times sales. Coming out of earnings, 16 times sales. Let's look at what they actually reported and what was probably expected. So, I mean, they reported 22% growth, and the expectations, just given the size of that move, was likely for something significantly higher. I'll say 30-ish, maybe 35%. And clearly they didn't get that. Was it reasonable for people to be expecting 30, 35% from them? I don't think so. Which is why I haven't reacted to the stock, and we have continued to keep it in silver tier. We'll wait for the sellers to wash out. And from 16 times sales, I think there are people that are willing to buy this if they can produce, again, 20, 22, 25% sales. If they can surprise the market and do 25 or 28% sales, you'll see that multiples start to move back up again. That's my view. Are the returns in your options trades outperforming your stock trades overall? Absolutely not. The option trades are very, we have made particular bets on crypto miners, and then there are bid up trades. We have not seen a very good performance out of our option trades in the last, I'll say, 2 months or so. We've gone through waves where we've done very well, and then sort of like the momentum in those stocks or trades have sort of like fallen out, and then we are like now in wait and see mode again for a number of stocks. So that has not been the case. But when things are flying, yes, the option trades outperform in terms of like they'll, you'll get 30, 40% in 4 to 6 weeks, or sometimes in a day or in a week or something like that. but not, we don't make 200%, regularly in the options. It's more like we take a lot of small gains of 20, 30, 40%. And then we have, every once in a while, we'll have 100% gain, 130% gain. Ed says BITF is very low now. Well, let me put that up and see where we are. BITF. Truthfully, it looks like all the miners. This is BITF. That's a 1 year chart, daily chart for BITF. Let's look at 5 year weekly. And the truth is, you can look at all the miners and they look something like this. They all look something like this, which is that you got a little pop in November when President Trump was elected. And then since then, it's been sort of like reflecting that range that Bitcoin is in. SDXS, this one actually has quite a bit going on. Make sure I got that up. SDXS, which is stereotaxis, has gotten 2 major things approved. They've gotten their magic catheter, I think the CE mark in Europe, and I think they've gotten their Gemini system approved as well over there. They're awaiting both of those being approved in the United States. That would transform their business. That is expected somewhere between March and June of this year. And that, I believe, would be a radical transformation of this business along the lines of like what has happened with Senseonics. Because it really changes what they have to offer doctors and patients, etc. Okay, Tony asks, any thought on cellularity, CELU? Well, let me put this up. I don't know this company, so let me look at it first as a series of prices. I'm going to say this is another stock that has been recommended by a newsletter editor. Let me look at it as a business. There's almost a pattern to what I'll say non-financial news editors and other people who've not managed money for a living. And essentially that, newsletter publishers use to promote their ideas. They find a low price stock like this and get a copywriter to write about it. So this is a very small company. This is a microcap company, 45 million. What do they do? Let's see. It's a clinical stage biotech company working on CAR T. Yeah, I mean, this is this is a very risky company. I think somebody asked me about a similar one last week. You have to understand this is a clinical stage company, so they have no sales. They depend on selling shares to investors, and investors buy their shares with the idea that as clinical results are released, that there might be a huge pump, and that's really all you're betting on. So it's obviously done very little recently. I don't know this company offhand, but the very nature of it is that it's a sort of like it's a $45 million company that lives off investors. They got to keep producing shares to pay for their clinical trials. And the reason why people play it is for volatility. It's obviously gone down a great deal. I would have to go through the company and see like, hey, well, what events are coming up? Like if you want to make a very risky bet, but you can see the long term in this company is, poor. And my experience is that it's very, very unusual for a company with this kind of a price history to end up doing, anything on some permanent basis. But it's completely possible that they might have like some event coming up that can just boost it higher. So highly speculative, highly risky, not something that I would go near personally. 527 of XRP at 59 will hold. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means. Maybe you can elaborate in a comment. Any thoughts on plug? Let me put a plug chart. So this is Plug Power. Looks like that biotech stock. The difference is this: like Plug is very focused on one thing in new energy, and that is diesel. And there is no other company that is focused on diesel. Plug Power is a very cyclical company. It is definitively part of the um, new energy space. So it is bottoming out, and they have some things going. They were able to get their financing fixed. I believe they've got a loan, so they have enough money, I think, for at least the next 12, 18, maybe 24 months. So which means they don't have to issue shares here, which would be terrible. So that's a good sign. The shares have to bottom out. And then from there, we need, again, a little improvement in their business to get short-term speculators to come. For the people who are short, and you can bet there's people short there, to get squeezed higher. Then we need sort of like medium-term speculators to come be like, hey, the business is improving, and we're willing to make a 3-year bet or at least an 18-month bet. And then we need even some like, longer term-ish investors / speculators to come in and really take some supply in and be like, yeah, we're not selling till we get to whatever 12 or 15. It's beginning to sort of like unfold is what I would say. I think this is a second $10 donation. Thank you, Ed. We appreciate your generosity. If anybody else would like to provide a super chat, actually, we have a second super chat from the Guide Sin. I think I'm pronouncing that correct. Thank you so much. We appreciate super chats so much. Thank you very much. Let's see here. We got a lot of questions. We'll keep going here. You're welcome. You're welcome. Hi, Paul. I am a guide, so I might call myself the guidess like goddess, and my name is Sin. So got it. Well, thank you for the explanation. So I think I think I'm getting the pronunciation right. The guide Sin. And thank you for your super chat as well. Appreciate it. I just covered Trade Desk in response to a previous question. So just track back a little bit, John. John's a longtime subscriber, occasional live stream watcher. Check back, and I gave the answer to that. Let's see here. Shelly says, thank you, and you're welcome. Any thoughts on a bottom for Illumina? Let's look at Illumina on a 5-year basis. This is Illumina. I mean, it bottomed out actually. It looks like in October or early November 2023. So it's kind of made it hasn't made a 52-week low. I'd say the bottom is probably 86, most likely. The business needs to turn. The sequencing business is kind of cyclical. The sort of like the tools and research part of biotechnology is like sort of like going through its bottom. I think there's probably another 3 to 6 months left, but we'll find out when they report their earnings that will be coming up fairly soon. Let me see. I'm pretty sure they haven't reported. They may have reported. That might have been I don't always. Oh yeah, they did. They reported on February 6th. Yeah, and that's what like sent the stock down on its last leg down. But the fact that it didn't go back to 86 or 97, that's a good sign that the bottom is in. But whenever a stock shows this kind of a pattern, remember, the supply has to be absorbed by some mixture of buyers. And some mixture of those buyers have to, especially for a stock as big as Illumina. Illumina is is what? It's a $16 billion company. So it's big enough where it needs somebody probably to take in, a few $100 million worth of stock, kind of become like the cornerstone of that. And then as speculators and traders come in. Okay, I think I've opened up so many tabs that my computer is starting to get slow. So let me shut some tabs down to answer the question. John asks a question: what's our target price for re-entering Palantir? I've been heavily trimming it since your sell recommendation. Awesome job on this one. Well, I would have liked to have trimmed after the earnings results, truthfully. But like I said, you saw with Trade Desk, if you disappoint a growth stock, yeah, it can just lose a lot of its gains like that, right? So we're not going to be entering Palantir, anytime. I mean, it's at 103 times sales. I'm not buying it back at 80 times sales, right? I mean, I'm not doing this. I mean, we got out and we made decent money. My experience is that once, I mean, again, they don't have to stop growing to lose their upward momentum. I mean, you saw what happened with Trade Desk, right? So if they simply disappoint, and you can bet that in the next earnings, there'll be even more people that will bet on the earnings. For the last quarter, there was clearly enough people who were short the stock, anticipating that, hey, from 70 times earnings, that people would be disappointed. Instead, the shorts were squeezed and the stock went higher. Into the next one, there's probably going to be so many people betting with options, with stock on it. So the risk just goes up from here, and I don't really want to play. I don't really want to play. That's my view. Any thoughts on Carvana? Well, we added back to the silver tier, and it's making new 52-week highs. In fact, made a new 52-week high today, so we still like it. But, with Carvana, I'll put this up. Just like with other growth stocks, what can happen is that into earnings, you face the potential of what happened with Trade Desk, which is that if they miss their earnings by whatever, then it's 20% down. So I mean, growth stocks are incredibly volatile because the expectations are high, and there's a lot of people that come to bet on earnings because there's that volatility. And if you bet with options on volatility, you can make a lot of money fast. So I like it. One of the reasons why I like it is because when I go online, people still hate it with a passion. People who are short, and everything I see about used cars says that used car prices are going up. Carvana has a tiny, tiny market share of the used car market. When I last checked, it was about 1%. Maybe it's 2% now. So there's a lot of room to grow. At the same time, people are very skeptical of the company that they can do it. But they've been around, and they are the premier online car seller. So we're in it. And what's there? This was the super chat from the Guidus Sin, and thank you very much. You can join the subscribers. You can subscribe to ATG Digital Media. You can do super chats. Many ways that you can choose to support us. I think I answered your question, which is that I think it's going higher. I mean, we put it into the silver tier a few weeks ago, and it continues to go higher. But there is always risk around earnings when with these companies, especially if they've had a big move right before earnings. That's people essentially buying up the stock and bidding up higher in anticipation of an even bigger move. So if the numbers then don't come out as people are betting, they will dump it, in the aftermarket, and it will be down 20%. Now, I mean, in our time frame for the silver tier, we absorb a lot of that volatility because we want the long-term gains. But if your time frame is shorter term, it may be problematic. Never bought, but TTD looks now. I would actually say, my experience from trading, investing, speculating is that when people are selling, there's usually like a backdraft of selling that continues for a couple of weeks, and that selling then like finally sort of like goes out, and then there's a bottoming out period that follows, and then there's also a bid up process that's there, and so I don't like to chase right into like a big down, because oftentimes there's another seller on leverage that, like, maybe that needs to get liquidated out. And while there may be a reaction spike up, there's often like, another seller, that like, can take it down a little bit weaker. So I never try to rush into these, because like I said, there's sometimes a second seller. Curious about CDNA, CDNA or CVNA. Not sure if you mean Carvana or if you're talking about CDNA, which is a stock that we have owned in the past, which is CareDX. We're not in it, and I truthfully have not been following it very closely. I'm pretty sure Kathy Wood has a fairly large position in this. Let me just see very quickly. Let's see what they've done. Let me do my shortcut. So my shortcut is this. I look to see what are the estimates doing for the current fiscal year, which is 2025. So that's the blue line is the current fiscal year. And then the green line is for next year. So the estimates are rising. The stock is doing okay. The price to sales multiple, which is the orange, is kind of flat. So my judgment, let's also look and see what quarterly growth they have delivered recently, because this is the thing that short-term speculators. So they have produced 31% growth and 23% growth. So I would say things are looking good. If you intended CDNA, things are looking good over there, and we will be taking a look at it. Thank you for bringing it up. Can I discuss Mankind? I actually did earlier in the live stream. And the basic proposition that I put out for Mankind continues to be the same. And that's what I mentioned, which is that they've got a huge royalty stream from Tyvaso DPI, which continues to be incoming. Afrezza has a number of things, catalysts, that can shoot its growth higher. Then there is the prospect of a short squeeze because of them paying back their convertible debt. IonQ. This is the quantum computing. Yeah, I mean, I get asked about these, and I just want to just make sure that people understand what you're buying, right? I mean, because most retail investors just deal with price, right? So first of all, this is a $7.2 billion company, right? And in theory, they're in the quantum computing business. And I don't say that to get a rise or reaction, but just let's look at their financials, right? They're a $7 billion company. And this is how much revenue they have. They have about $12 million, right? I can just say that's not a lot. And they have definitely produced high growth numbers, but my impression is that this stock is being bid up on hype on quantum computers, and that's because I follow technological trends, and quantum computing, in my judgment, my opinion, is a good at least 5 to 7 years ahead. You can see it trades for 186 times sales. And it's really what they're pricing in is excitement over quantum computers. Now, this is the hardest thing with highly speculative stocks like this. It can go higher. And it can go higher. Why? Well, because whoever's dealing in the stock will take in, if they can, people who deal in stocks, they can see the demand and supply at any given time. They can also see the size of the portfolios that the people that are buying, to the extent that even if small hedge funds or small mutual funds are buying, or even if ETFs are buying it, they can see. And so they can gauge. And so they can keep a rise going for a period of time. And then at some point in time, when the demand is peaked out, like, they've sold out of their inventory, and then, it will just be allowed to fade out. The only time you don't get that is like really if there's like a real business that is actually growing. And my view is that this is still a research technology that is in very early stage. There's not yet a high growth business because quantum computers at this point are too expensive for the vast majority of companies. There's no near-term big business proposition, but it doesn't mean that stocks like this and the others in this category can't keep going higher. Hey Paul, do you think we need to ride on Grab and BB, both being heavily promoted on X? Well, I was just in Southeast Asia, and Grab is the Uber of Southeast Asia. I was in the Philippines, I was in Singapore, and you use Grab over there. Certainly, this has upside prospects. I haven't really looked at it. Let's look at. So they trade for about 8 times sales, and this is the thing that short-term speculators come to bid up through earnings surprises. 16% growth. I mean, it's okay. I mean, they are literally like the same as Uber. They do cars, scooters, motorbikes, and they also deliver food. So I mean, 16%. It's interesting. I think the maybe people looking to buy into an Asian play that they understand could go into it. I don't know, for whatever reason, doesn't like super excite me. Maybe if the growth was higher, but I have seen the stock periodically show up on the 52-week high, like BlackBerry. Yeah, I mean, this has obviously gone up a lot in the last year. It's kind of like what I said, like, what excites people is price. I'm sure there's a good story on BlackBerry, but I don't like to buy into old faded businesses generally. There might be a stock trade there, but generally there's just not enough demand. And what you will tend to see is on a demand and supply basis, people don't give up on their stocks. And so there's always like overhead supply willing at some point to come and push it lower. So it's not the kind of thing that I tend to play unless there's been a real enormous radical turnover. In other words, they've really completely changed their business model, and there's something completely brand new that the market really hasn't understood. That's not my understanding with BlackBerry, but I could be wrong. Any thoughts on MNTS? I actually went into MNTS earlier in the live stream, so just track back to when I scroll through the live stream and you'll see that I addressed it. Can I do some analysis on Sophie? Yeah, I mean, I get asked about this one pretty much every week, so let's go through it. Oops. SOFI, Sophie Technologies. All right, well, let's look at my shortcut. Let's look at estimates for the year. So estimates for 2025 and 2026 are rising. The price to sales multiple is going up. The price has gone up. Let's look at what they've delivered in terms of growth, revenue growth. This is what excites short-term speculators who come in and bet the earnings. So 29%, 22%, very respectable. And trading for price to sales of 7. Looks perfectly good. in my opinion, my judgment, not a guarantee. It's obviously getting bid up. They've got earnings momentum. They've got some price momentum. From price to sales, we can see, I mean, people are willing to pay 103 times sales for Palantir. So, I mean, will somebody be willing to pay 11, 12, 13 times for Sophie? Yeah, more than likely. What's going on with Editas? Let me see. Editas, from when we sold out of this a while ago, and we only own CRISPR in this sort of like technology set. Let's see what's going on with Editas. Let's see if so the revenue estimate, just like that's the blue line, just went like down a lot. We took the share price with it. I just need to go look at. This is my shortcut, by the way. If we're getting to a company, you type in the ticker symbol EDIT, and then you do investor relations, and it will take you then to the investor relations page. And then I just go to press releases, and then you can see, well, okay, what's the new press release? So, okay. Let's go back 1 year because we haven't seen anything here. Yeah, you can see they have announced a strategic transition to in vivo gene editing company. These are never positive. Any strategic transition means you're starting kind of from scratch in something new because whatever you were previously in wasn't working, and you have been forced to pivot. And as a result of that, let's go back to the chart, straight up chart. Let's put up a 1 year chart. Yeah, I mean, 1 year down 83%, this year up 8.66%. It's 137 million market cap. And then let's look at how much money they have. Because remember, they're a clinical stage biotech and they live off investors. They have $265 million in cash, and they are using up about $50 to $60 million. They've got about, at current rate, they have about a year to year and a half of operations before they got to raise money. They won't wait on that long. I can tell you that one thing that's positive is that whoever the investment banker is will be assigned to pump the stock up so that they can get a better price when they do their offering. So that's one positive. Yeah, nobody thinks about that, but stocks are usually pumped higher right before an offering so that they can get a higher price. So that might be good. But bottom line, they're starting back in a new field from scratch, and they got to go through, clinical trials and a lot of different things, and they're going to need a lot of money. So it's something that is going to drive off clinical events for the foreseeable future. D. Savage says, how might recent developments, expansion of BRICS, impact market performance? I don't think this will have anything to do with market performance, in my opinion. The dollar continues to be the currency of choice for the vast majority of trade in the world. I don't think that the BRICS currency is going to be something that most people are going to take, because do you really want to own Chinese yuan or the South African rand or the Brazilian reais? Yeah, I don't. You want to hold the Indian rupee that continues to make new lows against the dollar? Yeah, not that many people takers for this, so the dollar will continue to be, the currency that people use. That's my view. Richard says, any thoughts on why Michael Saylor talks about how he thinks Bitcoin will go? Me, I would want to stay quiet and buy more while it is cheap, maybe to generate more money to buy. Well, Michael's got to, sell the prospect of much higher Bitcoin to extract money from equity markets, convertible bond markets, and now the preferred dividend market. If you don't talk about anything, then people will be like, well, why should I own your software company? So he's got to talk about Bitcoin, and what is there to talk about Bitcoin other than the prospects for much higher prices, right? I mean, that's the bet that he's making, right? That you give me money now, and I think this price keeps going for the next, whatever, 20, 50, 100 years. And whatever price I pay now is lower than what it's going to be in 7 to 10 years. And I agree with Michael about this. So there's nothing else to talk about. I mean, that's the only pitch that he's got, which is that this is our belief, this is our understanding. Give us money now, and your money will multiply at a rate that we can, sort of estimate and assume. And for convertible bonds, they're like, he also talks about the volatility. Why? Well, because convertible bonds drive off volatility. So that's important to them. For the preferred stock market, he talks about STRK and says, you want a nice dividend? Here, we'll give you a nice dividend. Give us money to buy Bitcoin. So that's what it is. Hey, Paul, can you do some analysis in Note? I think like Dan puts out and Dean puts out like a pretty basic analysis that's there. This kind of analysis is sort of like there's no real easy way to make this like super easy. It would require us to spend quite a bit of time on this. And given the constraints of our team, which is we are 8 people, including me, that does everything from manage the computer system, distribute trades, do the research, write the research, create obviously all the content. What we put out pretty much is where we are. I can do this offhand because I'm just sort of like answering one-off questions here and there. But just understand that when you are getting a trade, we have gone through this, right? We have done this. And the vast majority of people just kind of want the trade, right? And so for us to bulk up our team, et cetera, to write up more things, yeah, I don't think I don't think most people want that. And just understand, essentially you can do this yourself very easily. You can subscribe. I mean, you can actually just go to Yahoo Finance and simply look like, hey, are the estimates going up? What's the price to sales? This is the 2 critical factors that are important in a bid up, which is that the price to sales multiple needs to be something reasonable that people feel like they can pay something higher for. Then you got to get the interest of short-term speculators. Those are the people that come and bet on earnings and things like that. And if they want to see like a surprise, and that gets the whole ball rolling. Then you get medium-term speculators, long-term investors. But thank you for your question. I'm sorry that we can't do a whole lot more than we currently do, because like I said, we have 8 people that do everything from stock picking, writing, content making, computer systems, customer service, all the above. So I was waiting for someone to notice. This is a scarf that I actually got while I was on my trip. So thank you. I actually love this blue myself. I was like, this one. I got to cut the tag off. That's been bothering me the whole live stream, but I'll cut it off for the next time that I'm on. All right. I think we've done a record $2 hours and 18 minutes of live streaming. Come back again next week. I want to once again say special thanks to Ed and to the Guidus Sin for their super chat. Appreciate both of you a great deal. Thank you all for attending Thank you all for attending the live stream. And come back next week. This is Paul saying thank you and goodbye.